Where are you? Skull Rock. Do you know it?
Hello, everyone. This is Stacy over at the Skull Rock broadcast. I am joined by.
Hello, this is Megan. Welcome back to our Stranger Things podcast. As always, we are super excited to be here, excited to be back after a week off. And we are going to be talking today, continuing our season 2 deep dive of season 2, chapter 5. Dig Dug.
Dig Dug.
This was a cool episode. We're super excited to talk about it. It's a pretty long episode, actually, but we were talking about how it's pretty fast-paced. It moves pretty quickly, and there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot of action.
Yeah.
Things are happening. Things are popping. And why do you think it's called Dig Dug?
Well, actually, two things.
Yeah.
One was Max's video game is called Dig Dug. And the second thing is Hopper digs deep, as does some other characters, into the tunnels. So look at that double symbolism there.
Yeah, I love like the symbolism of like the tunnels, like the game Dig Dug, where you're like digging through. Oh, maybe we're digging deep today instead of diving deep.
Look at
There
that.
you go. Let's dig deep. How are you doing today, Stacy?
I'm doing swell. Definitely missed you last week, but we've been able to record a few mini episodes on our Patreon. And I was able to see Horde on the big screen, which was fantastical. And yeah, just it started to cool down and feeling those fall feels. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. It's like perfect dog walking weather. So I've been trying to take advantage of that and get Leia for some walks, which I don't do enough, but she has a big backyard to play in, so she's fine. But it's good exercise. So yeah, and things are going pretty good. Settling into my new job at work, and yeah, can't complain. We've got a little over a month until our big trip. So Epic is having their September Chicago convention, like as we speak. So I'm pretty sure after they get back and finish with that, then we should be getting our meet and greets announced like pretty soon.
Sensational.
So it's going to be great. All right, well, let's dig in.
Let's do this. Let's dig on deep with the Dig Dug. So we open at the Byers sort of during or shortly after the magic hour, where we see it's a little after sunset. And I always liked this shot, which I do love when you were making your Lego set. We were both like, what the hell? What's up with this front porch swing? And it's actually, I'm noticing now that you actually see quite a few shots of it. And it made me think of The Evil Dead. You would not like that movie at all. But yeah, we got a poster of it in Jonathan's room. But every time I see a swinging porch swing, I'm like, Evil Dead. And the phone is ringing. And Joyce is trying to call Hopper, but keeps getting his machine. I do love his message. I'm probably doing something incredible right now, which only the real OGs, long before voicemail, they remember an answering machine message. It had to be just perfect, you know?
Yeah, it was a pretty good one. And I was like, always with the phone, every single episode. It's like the phone is ringing.
Where's the pop of her with the phone? Hello?
Yeah, exactly. So Joyce can't get a hold of Jim, but she walks around trying to like place more of the pictures where they go in like the puzzle. And the music in this scene, like you said, I feel like it's very ominous, very like horror movie. Like it's just very classic, creepy music.
Did you know
how I would describe it?
That lamp that she kind of stops.
Oh, yeah.
That was now my taste is questionable, guys. That was an ugly ass lamp.
Yeah, between lamps and phones, those are like Joyce's two favorite things, I feel. But Will is talking to Mike, and he's trying to describe to him what's going on. And he says he can see and feel what the shadow monster, which is what they're still calling it, can see and feel. But at first, I liked this line. it was like a dream that you can't remember unless you think really hard, but now he remembers all the time. And so Mike says that he's kind of like a super spy, but Will then asks back, what happens if the shadow monster figures out that they're spying on him?
Yeah.
So Mike just comforts him, says we're not going to let that happen, but definitely some foreshadowing there.
Ooh, creepy. And then we go to Jim, who is walking down the tunnels with all the upside down particles, or as I like to call it, floating pieces of toilet paper. And he uses his flashlight. He's got his gun drawn. He's looking around. And I'm not going to say what that thing looks like. Use your imagination. But something like the giggles that came out of me watching that. Something basically, an orifice spews on him. And this poor man, like literally his vision starts blurring. He gets very weak and he is struggling, and he actually faints before he's able to get out of the hole that he dug. And that pesky damn upside down, the vines start actually filling in the hole, trapping him beneath the ground.
Yeah. So I thought that the cinematography in this shot again was very cool with the flashlight shining around and the spores or the particles like in the air. But the connection that I also made that I had never made before was, so in Star Wars, do you know the scene where they're like on the asteroid and the Millennium Falcon flies into like a hole on the asteroid, and then they're inside what they think is like a cave, and it's very similar to like the tunnels, but then it ends up not being a cave. It ends up that they're inside of this space slug. Do you remember this?
Is this
it's
from
in
the
Empire...
first movie or Empire
no,
Strikes
it's in
Back?
Empire Strikes Back.
I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
rewatch it. Damn, I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
so then they realize that they're inside of this like creature, but the walls are very like spongy and gross, like inside these tunnels, and then they have to like fly the ship out of the creature before it like swallows them.
Does it go out the creature's mouth or its ass?
They fly back out the creature's mouth as it's like closing.
Oh my god! Like, I'm claustrophobic. My palms are sweating right now. Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, the tunnels are very like, I don't know, Star Wars coded to me in that way.
Oh my god.
But that's the opening credits.
So we go to the Motor Motel. Now, in my youth, when I used to, do security for a lot of horror conventions, I stayed at some real shit heaps. Like the kind of places where the door won't even physically close, where there may or may not have been a crack pipe underneath a dresser when you moved it to play beer pong. I've seen some stuff. The Motor Motel looked actually kind of cozy. I know most people would be like, hooker sheets. I would be like, this is nice. The door actually physically closes. We have a working toilet. So I would have thought I was staying at the Ritz. And if this
No, it was a pretty nice
Right?
motel. Yeah.
this was a fan fiction, there would have only been one room left with one bed. But
Yeah.
Jonathan and Nancy, they get the option. And I do love the woman behind the desk slurping with judgment on her soda pop as they go separate beds.
Yeah. Single or double? Double.
Double, yeah. Honestly, I would have fucked up. I would have let the cat out of the bag. I would have been like, single. But no, this is a really good scene because, yeah, originally I liked it that she ended up with Steve at the end of season 1. But now we're starting to see Natalia and Charlie's chemistry. And I think if they had gone the non-traditional route, it wouldn't have been made an interesting story. So here we actually see a little bit of a glimpse of what could have been with their relationship after the events of season 1. So what happens in this hotel room?
Jonathan asks on or off about the lights, and that's a callback to season 1 when he asks if she wants the lights on or off after they sleep in the same room together when they saw the Demogorgon for the first time, or Nancy did. And Nancy goes, "Oh, I'm having deja vu." And she says, "We only seem to hang out when the world's about to end," which I thought was another cool line.
Love that.
but they look at each other's matching scars, which is another fan fiction trope that I know we love.
We match. Yeah.
And she's kind of sweet. She asks him, like, what happened? You just disappeared after everything. And Jonathan's like, well, Will needed me. And then he goes, and Steve, and she says, I waited, which I mean,
Damn.
he's right. He's like, only like a month, because it was early November, right?
Yeah.
By Christmas, they were together. So she didn't wait for long.
No.
Jonathan's right. But we see that maybe she didn't go back to Steve right away. She did kind of hold off to see if Jonathan was
Gonna make a move, maybe.
interested. Yeah, gonna make a move. And apparently he didn't. So there was some sweet chemistry there when they were kind of touching their hands together. But then she kind of gets frustrated with him, and she just turns her back to him and says she wants the lights off. So that's kind of how it ends.
I would have been like, you know what? Actually, I want the lights on. I'd flick on the overhead light. Like, I'm petty like that. So Nancy would have met her match with Stacey. But I do like the cool transition with the camera. It goes between the two beds, and it kind of like fades into the dark carpet. And when we pull back, it was what, a poster or a drawing of a castle?
I didn't notice that. I just saw Will like pop up suddenly as he woke up. So
Pretty cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't catch the castle.
I had my opera glasses on.
Yeah. Will wakes really suddenly, and you can see that Mike spent the night on the floor next to the bed, and Will goes to tell his mom that he saw Hopper and that he thinks that he's in trouble, that he's going to die.
Damn.
And we cut immediately to Hopper waking up in the tunnels. He vomits, which this was lovely.
Welcome to being hungover in your 30s.
He looks for the opening and realizes that it's gone. So I liked this. He cuts off his sleeve to make a mask to wrap around his face, because you can tell that those spores are kind of what knocked him out, it seems like. And he leaves a trail of like cigarettes.
And little breadcrumbs. Those are Hopper breadcrumbs. And he was doing PPE long before PPE. You know? And
I was like, he looked like me going into the grocery store during the pandemic.
Right? Like, my God. And I just think it was interesting, because think of how like panicked you would feel that suddenly you can't find the hole anymore, you know? And everything looks exactly the same. And I always, you know, kind of roll my eyes whenever I hear like somebody was hiking and they, you know, went off the trail a little bit. But my father told me a story once that he was in the woods once and he went a little off the trail. And he was like, it's crazy how like discombobulated you can get.
You're so quickly disoriented.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And they say that like then you start sweating, you know, and you're taking like, you know, layers of your clothes off, and your heart rate's going. So I can only imagine that times 1,000 in a different dimension of a tunnel. So Hopper, I think, kept it together pretty good. And I thought the little breadcrumbs of the cigarettes were pretty smart, but those pesky vines, they're little dicks.
They were mostly like eating up those cigarettes.
Yeah.
So where do we go next? Because this was a pretty funny scene.
So I love that it switches to Erica. She is squeezing her maple syrup. She is living her best life. And I love that Erica's mom, Mrs. Sinclair, is like, Erica, that's too much. And she's like, nuh-uh. And we don't really get many scenes with the Sinclairs, but this was our first time really, really in the kitchen, seeing them all sit down together. And I love that Lucas asks his dad, like, what do you do, you know, when you make mom angry? And this man, Mr. Sinclair, MVP, he knows how to deal with his lady. And he's like, don't ever make her mad, you know, and she's never wrong, son. And just so good. And I love that Lucas kind of takes a moment, and then he gets up and he kind of like makes up a half-ass lie, being like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with Dustin.
And
he leaves, and you see an ocean of syrup go on to Erica's plate. And she knows just by her mom's look like, okay, time to put the cap on it, put it down, you know?
Time to get serious for a second because this scene
Dude.
was like so heartbreaking. I almost cried. Dustin's mom is outside their house looking for Muse, and she walks inside and Dustin is on the phone, and it's like a machine, a recording, then it hangs up and it's a dial tone that you hear on his end, but he's pretending to be speaking to someone.
Can that kid an Oscar? That was some good acting.
Correct. Yeah, he was like acting very well.
Yes, very well.
But he lies to his mom to get her to go look for Muse in Loch Nora, where we think Steve lives.
Yeah.
But he lies and says that someone saw Muse walking around there. And then they're so sweet to each other and hugging each other. And he's like, you're going to find him.
Oh,
And she leaves. And so then he sets up Dart's trap. So
that trap.
this is hilarious. We've got the slices of bologna.
Yep.
We've got the hockey goalie uniform. And we've got Dustin running out going, shit, 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 shit.
He can't really even run that good wearing all that shit.
Yeah.
But that absolutely killed me with the slices of bologna.
This is my question, though. Where did Dustin sleep?
Oh my God, yeah. In
Because
bathtub.
Dart was in the bedroom.
Damn, I would have been like the fact that he probably didn't even sleep at all. But
Yeah.
like, oh my God, just knowing that that thing is inside your bedroom, like you better hope to God your mother is going to bring like laundry or something into that bedroom because holy shit. But yeah, I thought that was smart of him to set everything up. And, you know, I love that there is a hop of him in the hockey gear. I definitely need to get that. I love that. But I love that he goes into the shed and he kind of looks between the like, you know, the boards. And Dart, yet again, that CGI looked great.
And he was still kind of cute to
Kind of
me.
cute. Yeah.
Like, without his face opening up, like, he was still pretty small. Like,
Yeah.
he was still kind of cute. And when he looked at Dustin and, like, could tell that Dustin was in the shed and was sort of coming towards him, and then Dustin had to jump out and scare the shit out of Dart and, like, knock him down into the cellar or whatever.
I
It was
know. And I love that
it
he
was sad.
apologizes after he like shuts the bulkhead doors. He goes, I'm sorry, but you ate my cat.
Exactly.
Perfect. So we cut to an 18-wheeler pulling up. And this scene always reminded me at the end of Firestarter when I'm like, Drew, like, did you fucking hitchhike all that way? That's not safe. And we know Elle could have, you know, handled herself clearly, but no wonder in a later episode, Hopper seems a little horrified to learn that a nice man in a big truck gave Elle a ride. Yikes. But she gets out in the song Bobby Bear's Green Green Grass at Home plays. And Elle walks to a tiny house and knocks. And it's Becky, Terry Ives' sister. And she at first thinks that she's like a Girl Scout or a Jehovah's Witness. And she's kind of a little short with her and slams the door. And I remember that there was like a trailer or a teaser where the opening actually was, or the ending of the trailer was Elle unlocking the door saying that she wanted to see Mama. So chills.
Yeah, because she unlocks the door and it's very reminiscent of the door unlocking in the very first episode of season 1.
Good call.
Which, going back to the fact that we don't think that the Demogorgon can unlock doors with its mind. So, I don't know. What is Terry Ives watching? She's
Did you
watching
catch OG Family Feud?
Okay.
With Richard Dawson, I believe. He was the one that always like was basically making out with the contestants long before Steve Harvey. When if you know, you know. And she is sitting in the den and she keeps saying these words: breathe, sunflower, rainbow, 450, 3 to the right, 4 to the left.
And Elle asks, what's wrong with Mama? Jonathan and Nancy get to this place. We're not really sure where they're going yet, but there's satellites on the roof of the building. And I want to know, because you're such a car nerd, what is that red van?
Oh, I didn't even clock it.
It's like some, I don't know, some sort of very retro looking red van in the driveway. But they buzz, and Murray comes over the loudspeaker and says to look at the camera, which I love that later in season 3, this happens again when Joyce and Hopper and Alexei show up. But he knows that when he opens the door, he's like, Jonathan Byers, Nancy Wheeler, you're a long way from home. And
oh, I found the van.
Okay, go ahead.
It is a Model F Space Cruiser.
Space Cruiser. That seems appropriate for
Look at that.
Murray.
I love that. That's the Murray mobile, I guess.
It was a pretty cool looking van.
Right?
They don't make them like that anymore. This house is like more like a bunker.
Yeah.
I would say. It's very interesting. I would love to like deep dive into all of the little things around Murray's bunker, because I feel like we've seen some photos from season 5 that people think that it looks like it could be Murray's house because of just the style of everything. But he does have a big American flag on the wall.
He does.
And he takes them into his kind of like room of crazy. And he's got the wall with all of the evidence about Barb and all of the red string, like making the connections, which is like the embodiment of that meme that there is.
Pointing to it, yeah, yep.
But I love this because he's like, I know everything about that day. I know every move Barb made. Like, what happened to your friend? It's up here somewhere. And Nancy just glances at it for a second. And she's like, the timeline's wrong.
That kills me.
And he's like, what? She's like, you've got it wrong. And the girl with the buzzed hair, she's not Russian. She's from Hawkins Lab. Her name's 11. And I love Jonathan. You might want to sit down for this.
Yeah, they basically, no pun intended, turned Murray's life upside down in that instant. We got a pretty cool cut of Billy's Camaro screeching to a halt in front of the arcade. Engine is revving, music is blasting out, and Billy starts to tell Max as she's climbing out she has an hour, and she finishes, yeah, I know, I'm walking home. And I love the name Shitbird. Billy uses it, and then Robin uses it in season 3. Something about Shitbird. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And he warns her about the attitude before peeling away. She flips him off. Siblings.
Well, and I think it would be hilarious to have Dacre like sign something with an autograph. Watch the attitude, Shitbird.
It's so good. Oh my God.
So she goes into the arcade after giving him the finger and goes straight to Dig Dug.
Name drop.
And it is out of order. There's a sign on it. So Keith comes over. He's got his cheese curls, of course, and he's like, sorry, Road Warrior, which that's like Mad Max, right? And can I watch that?
Yeah, you would be able to handle that.
Okay. So he's like, I don't know. He tells her there's something wrong with the motherboard or something, some bullshit.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't worry, I've got another one set up in the back. So Max is like following this creepy teenager into the back room. Like, I don't know, Max. I don't know if Dig Dug is worth it.
I love that he makes her hold his Cheetos as he unlocks the door.
And Lucas is waiting in the office.
Lucas has no problem prostituting Nancy, though, which I respect.
Because Keith is like, you better get me that date now, Sinclair. And he's like, I told you I would. But Lucas starts to explain to Max that he wants to tell her what happened, but if she knows, she could be arrested or even killed. And I hate that this is kind of like a moment of foreshadowing for season 4.
I know.
It's so heartbreaking, but he asks her, like, do you accept the risk? And she accepts the risk, and it gives me like chills.
Right? I didn't even think about that. Damn it. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, she basically is like, all right, let's hear it. And he begins
Yeah.
with, Will didn't get lost in the woods last year. He got lost somewhere else. We cut to Will. He's frantically drawing again. And Joyce asks if this is where he saw Hopper. Will says he thinks so. And they're trying to match the drawing to the taped up ones that are all over the house.
Yeah,
And
figure out where it fits.
the fact that Mike is able to spot, where this like missing fork in the road or tunnel is in the kitchen, and they both know like where it is in the drawing. Now they need to figure out, okay, where is it physically? Mike asks if he said anything before leaving, and Joyce says he said something about vines, and then they hear a car. And who is it?
It's Bob.
It's Bob.
Sweet Bob. He's coming by to bring Will some brain teasers that used to give him comfort when he was sick. And Joyce kind of tries to brush him off to
Yeah.
say like Will's sleeping, like he can't have visitors right now. But he walks away, and as he's walking away, he says, "They don't call me Bob the Brain for nothing." And Joyce has a little bit of a light bulb moment and realizes that Bob could probably help. So they invite him in, and I love the shot of just the four of them, just Bob's just staring around. They basically tell him that the objective is to find the X. And fun little reference to the Goonies.
I'm glad you got
which
that. Yep.
Sean Astin was in the Goonies, but he jokingly says, "What's at the X? Pirate treasure?"
If you know, you know. Yep.
Then this is the episode where I don't remember where we talked about it. Maybe the episode where we were talking about Bob.
I know this was way back in season 1 because we were like, oh, I wonder if Hopper's trailer is off Lover's Lake. And I went, well, Jordan Lake or Lover's Lake. And you went, what? And that's when I was like, they're the same lake. And you went, oh. And that's when I knew, ladies and gentlemen, I was like, this is just I have met my match in the best possible way. I need someone that challenges me because I was convinced Jordan Lake and Lover's Lake were the same lake, but they clearly state in this scene when Bob recognizes the heart shape, that's Lover's Lake. And then he leaves the room and goes, and that's Jordan Lake. So I was like, Megan, you clever son of a bitch.
So we had rewatched this whole scene like as we were recording one day so I could prove to Stacy that they were separate lakes.
Just like a sunroof.
It's a really cool scene because first Bob is, being probably what any normal person would do and saying like, Joyce, what's going on?
Yeah.
Is everything okay? Is this an episode? Like,
I feel like he was to me
basically saying, are you having an episode?
Yeah.
Because she was so invested in it. But then he's like, I don't know how I can help. And his attention is distracted by it's on the window and it's a heart shape. And he was like, I know that shape. That's Lover's Lake. And then he turns around, like you said, leaves the room and says, this is Lake Jordan. And he's like, okay, well then there's Sattler's Quarry. There's the Eno River.
Did you see the one tip a canoe? I died. I was like, what the fuck is that? But now
he recognizes that it's a map because he realizes that the tunnels or the whatever they think they aren't roads, but they don't go over bodies of water. So he can kind of recognize the shape that it's a map of Hawkins. Then we cut to Hopper again. And does he find is this almost like a graveyard? Like, are these bones?
Yeah, so the lighting wasn't that great, and I thought I saw maggots at one point, and I was like, no.
Yeah, or like a face? Does it look like a face?
I think it was a bunch of, decomposing animals. Let's hope it was just animals, because...
Yeah, I was a little concerned.
He sees a bunch of, hopefully, just decomposing animals, and he quickly discovers with his lighter that the vines hate heat, and they hope that when you actually put a flame near them. So he tested out a few times with the lighter, and then he, very Indiana Jones-esque, he uses one animal bones, the strip of uniform, material that he ripped off himself, and makes torch. And
Yeah.
he's able to get the vines to kind of like squirrel away, and he starts to dig, which I started like I started overthinking this because I was like, well, if he's in the upside down and he was to dig out of the ground, wouldn't it be like he'd be digging upside down or right side up? Like, you know how everything is like flipped on his head? And I
Yeah.
actually gave myself a headache thinking too hard. I was like, you know what? Not going to do that. Not going to
Yeah,
do
it
that.
was almost like he just picked a random place to start trying to claw his way out, and it was just soil. Like, he
Yeah.
wasn't getting anywhere.
Dear God.
Then Dustin also digging
Well,
because
now,
he had to bury poor Muse and clean up the house and,
you did a good
cover
job.
his tracks. Yeah. And he's trying to call Lucas. He's code red, and this is Erica answers the walkie, and I love her code shut your mouth.
Yeah. Clicks it off and then sees the He-Man doll. She just smiles. I'm like, yep.
Yeah. But then we're back at Becky's house, and Becky and Elle are talking. This is interesting because it's the second time someone references a dream in this episode, because Will said that it's like a dream that you can't remember unless you think really hard about it. And then Becky tells Elle that Terry, it's like she's stuck. She's in a dream.
Oh, man.
A
That
really
line.
long dream.
Yeah, and then right away she's like, a good dream, and she's like, I hope so. And
Mhm.
you see Alice crying, and Becky is telling her, she always believed you were out there, that you were going to come home. And that's when we get the haunting instrumental song of Crib, which is off the
Mhm.
Stranger Things soundtrack. And she's shown what would have been her nursery. And it's just
Yeah.
such a heartbreaking moment to kind of see like what could have been and how much the lab has stolen from, Elle and her family. And Becky even offers like, I could get you a real bed. You could actually stay here. And Elle nods,
Yeah. Before we talk about what happens next, that picture I sent you,
Is that
was
in there?
in the nursery.
All right, let's talk about the picture. Let's break this down
So
because I was
if
gagged.
if you have listened to me at all before, sometimes I get on this little kick about the whole Alice in Wonderland White Rabbit thing, which I
Mhm.
think even from our very second episode, like we talked about
Yeah.
that. I have never noticed before. I found another white rabbit. There is a fucking white rabbit in a picture on the wall in Elle's nursery.
Was this the first time you noticed it? Because I had never noticed it until you pointed
was
it
the
out.
first time I noticed it. Because the other one that I kind of talk about a lot is Holly making a white rabbit on the light bright.
Yeah.
In season 4. And I'm trying to think if there's any other white rabbits. So there was an Alice in Wonderland picture in the behind the scenes stuff that they've shared for season 5.
Mhm.
Also, we have the song White Rabbit in the very first episode of the show. And
Henry's sister's Alice.
Henry's sister, again, talking about the house being like a dream. So dreams, White Rabbit.
Oh, shit.
Also, Nancy does have a little stuffed rabbit at the end of season 4
Oh, yeah.
when they're packing up the
Mr.
stuff to give
Rabbit.
away. And Henry Creel kills the rabbits, or we think that that's who was killing the rabbits outside of the Creel house when Alice kind of finds it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's just a continuing kind of like motif that they sprinkle in here, or if it's going to have some meaning, some connection. I don't know.
I
but
love that you were able to pick up on that because I try to like see like, oh, what movie posters or this or that. I've seen this episode hundreds of times. I'm not even exaggerating. And the fact they're able to pinpoint like that's a white rabbit. So either that's just a clever coincidence, but I think everything is put in the background of these sets for a reason. And
Yeah.
I think that was really cool that you of all people picked up on that, dude.
But what happens as they're standing in the nursery?
Well, there starts to be some flickering lights, kind of like call back to the first season. And, Aunt Becky is just like, oh, it's just some loose wiring. But 11 follows it and she starts seeing that it's almost like leading her back into the den where her mother is. And instead of it being just the lights, what is the TV next, right?
Yeah, so the TV channels start to change on their own, and then it ends on like static, which we know is like what Elle needs to be able to go into her state,
Yes.
to go into like the void. But as that happens, Terry Ives' nose starts to bleed.
Yep.
So it's almost as if she was using some sort of power the way 11 does to make that happen, to kind of communicate with Elle. And she says she wants to talk. Elle says she wants to talk.
Dun, dun, dun.
We cut to Bob trying to figure out the scale of the map.
Oh my God.
So they're all kind of helping him. This is where they talk about the Tippecanoe. He's like,
I was like, what is that? That's adorable.
But they're trying to like, take the measurements from different places and figure out the scale and then locate where the X is. And he says something half mile south of somewhere. And then they all get up and start getting ready to leave. And he's like, oh, are we going there?
I love that.
And then Dustin gets to the Wheeler house. This is hilarious.
I love it.
So, first of all, Karen Wheeler is on the phone.
Oh,
and
yeah.
apparently she's been on the phone for a long time. So apparently moms in the 80s just talked on the phone all day.
Just gabbing. Yep.
I don't know what they were talking about. She says something about Margaret Thatcher. Also, another little American flag was like hanging over their like desk area. Did you see that? So the doorbell rings and Karen says like, Ted, can you get that? And then Ted just like grumbles after it rings a couple more times. It's like, I guess I'll get that.
I can't.
And he answers the door.
And it's fantastic. I love it when he's like, well, where's Mike? Well, where's Nancy? And he's like, our children don't live here anymore.
Yeah, but he has to ask Karen. He's like, Karen, where's Mike? And she's like, Will's. And Karen, like, where's Nancy? Allie's.
Yeah.
So Ted's like, our children don't live here anymore.
Basically, like Dustin's like, you're useless or something like that. And
Yeah.
Ted's like, language, because he's like, son of a bitch, you're really useless. And who pulls up at that exact moment making friendship history?
So this was way too little
Wasn't enough.
for the episode. Not enough. But the Beamer with the sunroof
Damn you.
shows up. And Steve Harrington steps out of the Beamer.
Wear painted on jeans.
He's carrying a dozen roses and he's kind of amping himself up. He's trying to like talk through what he's going to say. And I love this part. He's like, I'm sorry. I love you. What the hell am I sorry for?
Thank you. Like, yeah, he's got a few things to apologize about, but I'm like, damn, like, what a good guy.
So Dustin sees him and he stops him and he asks if the flowers are for Mrs. Wheeler, which Steve is like, no. And he's like, well, Nancy's not here. And basically he like steals Steve to help him. And he just takes the flowers and gets in the car.
Yeah.
He's like,
over.
do you still have that bat? And Steve's like, what bat? Dustin's like, the bat with the nails. And he gets in the car and Steve's like, we're going now? And yep. That's all we get of Steve Harrington in this episode.
It's a little taste, but you know what? It segued to, like I said, one of the best friendships in the entire show.
Yeah, it was an important scene because it was their meet cute, kind of.
Yes.
I think we talked about that in our episode titled Meet Cute. So if you would like to if you would like to go back and listen to that. I think they were our number one in that episode.
I think so, yeah.
Spoiler alert if you haven't heard it yet. So We go back to Hopper,
What does he do? He can
and
barely breathe. What does he
he's
do?
tiring out.
He lights up a cigarette. Classic
He
80s.
he starts to get wrapped in the vines, though, right?
Yeah. You know what? I'd like to think the lines are a PSA about anti-smoking, and they were like, put that fucking thing down. So that's what really happened.
But this was a cool scene. So as the vines are like wrapping around him, you cut to Hopper's truck in the pumpkin field, and you can kind of hear him
Yeah, it's
scream.
so eerie.
But as we're still on that scene in the pumpkin field, we hear Lucas's voice, and it's like, and that was the last we ever saw of her. Then she was just gone. So it's a little ominous, like, oh, is that the
Yeah.
last we ever saw of Hopper?
Yeah, damn.
But he finishes up his story to Max. And this was really funny, I thought, because he says, it feels like it was just yesterday. I can't believe it was a year ago. And Max is like, yeah, I bet. That's really crazy. It's crazy, but I really liked it. And I did have a few issues. So I thought
Tells
this was
me.
a little bit meta
Yeah.
with like them kind of like poking fun at their own show
Hmm.
for season 1, because she's like, it was a little derivative in parts. I wish it had more originality.
Bye. Goodbye.
But basically, she doesn't believe him.
So, at first he's like, you think I'm making this up? And she kind of gets frustrated with him and stuff. And, he's like, our number one rule is friends don't lie. And she's like, oh, yeah, well, what about the whole dig dug thing? And he's like, no, I did that for a reason. And she kind of gets a little pissy with him. And she actually walks out into the arcade and she brings up Al, and she's like, I don't think you guys ever lied to her. She's just getting louder and louder. And finally, he has to put his hand over her mouth and he looks terrified. And he's like, keep your voice down. And she suddenly sees that he's not joking. He's not pulling her leg. He's actually really scared. And she's like, oh my God, like, you actually believe this. And just then, toot toot, here comes the asshole mobile. Camaro pulls up and she
Yeah.
tells him, and I thought it was sweet that she like holds his hand for a second. She's like, don't follow me out.
Yeah. Before this, though, she says, prove it.
Prove it. Yes.
Yeah. I feel like that's important because that was what his goal was. He's like,
Yes.
okay, now I have to figure out how to prove it.
We may see in the next episode Lucas trying to prove it, to show that he was telling the truth. So I felt like Lucas could have maybe backed away from the door a little bit, but I don't think he realized how crazy Billy was. So it's pretty obvious that Lucas was standing right behind her when she gets out. She gets into the car and he's just doing his bitchy, like sitting back, with the aviator glasses. And he's like, what the hell did I talk to you about? And she's like, oh, what? Oh, Lucas? And like, Max really isn't that great of a liar. And she's like, oh, we weren't hanging out. We were both at this, arcade. And he's like, oh, so he has a name. And she goes, I'm not lying to you. And he goes, well, you know what happens when you do. And he kind of just glares at her and they speed away. And he's such a dick. But you know what? He's a pretty dick.
Only thing he's got going for him, really. We go back to Murray's bunker and he finishes up listening to the tape recording. So I thought that this was pretty cool because it was 2 new characters finding out about everything that happened in season 1
Mhm.
right at the same time.
Yes.
Because as Lucas was telling Max, Jonathan and Nancy were also telling Murray.
Mm.
So it's kind of bringing 2 new characters into the fold. And he goes to make himself a drink because Nancy's like bugging him. She's like, okay, so what do you think? Is it enough? Like, is it incriminating? And how long is this going to take for you to think about it? And he's like, I need to have a drink. I need to think about it. He has to put on his jazz record.
Of course.
And he gets the vodka out. He pours himself some vodka, but then he's telling them that basically it's too far-fetched.
Yeah.
Because he believes them, but they don't need him to believe them.
They need the
They
world.
need like the world, the everyday person to believe them. And people don't want to believe things that stray too far from reality. So he's like, if you put this story out there, the first person with authority that calls bullshit, everybody's going to say, oh, see, like, I knew it was bullshit.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. And he's right. Like, that is accurate to society for sure. And he realizes when he takes a drink of his vodka that it's too strong.
Yeah.
So he goes to get some water, and as he pours the water in, he has a little bit of an epiphany, and Nancy's right there on his wavelength.
Yeah.
And so she's like, we water it down. And they decide that they need to make it more palatable, easier for people to believe. Like, they talk about making it, maybe Barb was exposed to chemicals like
3
Mile
Mile Islands.
Island.
Yeah.
So something that's familiar that people will believe. And they kind of start to make a little bit of a plan. And then very briefly, we do cut back to the lab, and there's a scientist showing Owens what's happening with this soil.
Yeah. They basically realize that they're kind of all connected. It is a hive mind. So when they're activated or they start swirling around, under heat and stuff,
Yeah.
they're all like almost coming to life. So it's almost like one big entity.
So then we're back at the Ives household. Becky is making Elle a blindfold, and Elle sits down, puts on the blindfold, and Becky is like, she's sweet. She's like telling Elle, if you're able to talk to Terry, please tell her that I love her, that I'm sorry I didn't believe her.
Yeah.
And Elle's kind of like, just stop talking.
Stop talking. Yep.
But Terry shows her what happened. So we go through each of the words that Terry is saying and what happened in her memory that caused this word. So first, she starts to go into labor. She's pregnant. So Elle's in the void kind of watching this happen. And Terry starts to go into labor. And Becky is the one saying, breathe.
Yeah.
As she's going into labor. She's like, they're on their way. They're coming. So people are coming to help her, I guess, to take her to the hospital. And at the hospital, who's there?
Well, she gets a glimpse before she's like given the gas, and she hears the baby cry when it's delivered, and she sees Dr. Brenner. See, guys, I said it the right way. And, she sees him take his mask off for just a second before she's knocked out.
And I didn't realize this was the first time we see Matthew Modine in season 2.
Yeah. Isn't that such a creepy cameo?
Yeah. Was it the only time that we see him in season 2?
He comes back in Lost Sister.
Okay. Yes, you're right.
And she wakes up, and the first thing she sees is sunflowers, and it's
in
by
her
her hospital
room.
bed. And it's her sister telling her, like, I'm sorry, the baby was stillborn. And she instantly becomes frantic, being like, no, he was there, Dr. Brenner. I heard her.
He
She
took
cried.
her.
He took
Yeah.
her. And I guess we're meant to believe that a few years pass, because it then jumps to, you see, she's been collecting articles about the lab and stuff, and she's trying to open up a safe, and that's the whole 3 to the left, 4 to the right to get a pistol out of it.
Yeah. And she goes to the lab. She shoots her way in, basically. And the rainbow is the rainbow room.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the next scene is them taking her and basically like shocking her brain. And it's Dr. Brenner telling the guy to turn the dial to 450. And this is what made her brain dead.
Brain dead, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a way to shut her up, which, that sucks. And Jane is just shaken and gets out of it. And both her and her mother's nose are bleeding. So she kind of is able to put together the puzzle pieces of why she's stuck in this loop.
Yeah. And I like how you first saw it go through one time, but then it kind of sped up and started repeating. And you saw sort of like it all kind of blended together and just like was down to the essence of those like 6 phrases or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So really powerful scene, I think, and it was really important to the storyline
Yes.
because you realize what actually happened. Well, you start to see what actually happened to Terry.
Yeah.
So then they're all in the car driving.
Yep, it's Joyce, Bob, Mike, and Will, and they are driving around, and Will knows where to turn because it's one of his now memories. And what ends up happening is they turn towards the empty field. They see Hopper's truck.
They crash through that pumpkin sign.
Damn, that poor pumpkin sign, man. Could you imagine if he took all that time to paint that fucking sign? I'd be bullshit.
Well, somebody remade it because I have a picture with it.
Yep. Somebody was like, this is too good to be destroyed. But yeah, so Joyce and Bob get out. They start digging into the ground, and
I love Bob. He's like, we're just going down in the hole, okay?
literally the voice of reason forever. And this is when they find Hopper.
I also like how Bill.
Bill.
Who's Bill?
Who the fuck is Bill?
Bob is like, are we in Will's map? He's just like in a state
Yes.
of awe as they go down, and he lowers Joyce down and he's down there. They're looking around in the tunnels, but Joyce does find one of the cigarettes.
She does.
This is Hopper's. He's got to be down here. So then they follow the direction that the cigarette led them in, and outside you realize that the lab crew has showed up because
Yep.
Mike and Will are out there. But Joyce and Bob find Hopper and cut him loose. And this moment, though, because Joyce is kind of like all over Hopper. She's like, are you okay? Are you okay? But then Bob is like right kind of behind him to the side. And he sort of like kind of grabs Bob a little bit, like just like, I don't know, friendly. And he's like, hey, Bob. And Bob's just like, hey, Jim.
It's so good. Oh my god.
Favorite little part in that. I think it was one of my favorite parts of the episode.
Oh yeah,
actually.
absolutely.
Yeah, but then they look and they see the lab people in their suits, and above ground they start to do the flamethrowers
Yeah.
and burn the vines, because that's kind of like their first plan of action is to just burn everything.
Burn everything down.
And
Will has quite the reaction, and he starts like violently like convulsing, basically.
seizing, yeah, he's like having a seizure.
Woo!
Just for a long time, just laying on the ground, and that's where the camera just stays, and it starts to sort of pan out, and you see everybody kind of walking towards him. But
I love that nobody is like in a panic. Like,
right, we do figure out why that is happening later, but
Yes.
at this point we don't really know why it's happening. But it seems a little coincidence that as soon as they start with the fire burning the vines, that happens to Will.
Well, yeah, that was Dig Dug, and it, yet again ends on a very creepy note. But even though it was a long episode, I feel like we got a lot of information in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good one. It was fun. We just needed more Steve.
We need
That's
more
my only
Steve.
It's my only complaint about season 2 so far.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's been a fun
but
ride.
don't you worry. You start Steven till the cows come home pretty soon.
I know. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. That's pretty much it for the episode, I would say.
That's it. We dug deep into the tunnels, breathed in the spores.
Filming updates.
Filming updates.
We haven't had much official communication from the Stranger Things team. We did see that Matt and Ross stopped by the new Stranger Tours location in Jackson,
So
Georgia.
cool.
I know. So happy for them because they are huge fans of the show. They have a whole shop and they do tours of the area to show like the filming locations. And I just think that having Matt and Ross stop by and like play their video games and just hang out must have been like amazing. And I love that they kind of recognized that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that Matt and Ross like love it too because they're such nerds, and just to know that they're show has made such a deep connection with so many of us, I would imagine is cool.
Absolutely. Did you see that they made, I don't know what cast members have said this, but I guess apparently they have looked at the final script now?
Oh, that is something that came out. So it was Gayton doing a podcast interview, and he said that they all read the final script for the final episode on his birthday, which was just like a couple weeks ago. And he was really sweet because he said that he was trying to enjoy the moment and take it all in, knowing that it was the last time that they were all going to be together like that, reading it and finding out what happens. And just all of the people in that room and all of the people who are working on the show now officially know how the show ends.
It's crazy.
And they're going to have to keep that information to themselves for the next year, at least, I would say. Then we'll all get to find out.
Yep. Get ready. It's going to be an emotional roller coaster.
We do have something else we can talk about. So we officially got our tickets for the play, the Broadway play, Stranger Things, The First Shadow.
What a Broadway, baby.
We are going to Broadway, and the very first night of previews is March 28th, and that is when we will be there seeing the show, because I was not going to wait a single second longer than I had to see this show. We have been waiting so long.
We've avoided spoilers. We've been so
exactly because I feel like it's going to be even harder now to avoid spoilers because more people are going to be able to see it now that it's in the States.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, we need to see it immediately. Yeah, that's super exciting. There were a lot of leaks, some really big leaks.
Huge. Yeah. No, thank you.
Very, what it seems like are going to be very important scenes.
Yeah.
And I mean, we definitely have said from the beginning that we're not going to talk about those.
Nope.
There have been some set photos of different places that they're filming and people that have been spotted filming at different places. So luckily, I feel like not too many spoilers, but that one leak was pretty intense.
Keep those spoilers away from us, people. We don't want to see them.
Exactly. We want to be surprised and take it all in as they're ready to show it to us.
Amen.
We should start a little countdown till Stranger Things Day because Geeked Week is still coming up soon.
Yeah.
Maybe this week?
It could be this week, I think. I got to check.
I think it's this week. Yeah, September 16th. So Geeked Week starts this week. When you're listening to this, it will be over. So we may get some little teaser for Stranger Things, but I don't know. We're thinking that there's going to be more announcements on Stranger Things Day.
Agreed, yeah.
All right. Do you want to talk about merch?
I would love to. So I was lucky enough. I found this incredible artist on Imprint. They are called Keys, but on Twitter, their username is Ghost Corroded Coffin PR Manager, which I think is hilarious. And they are a really talented artist. They've done really cool, like, band flyers and what their, Corroded Coffin's vinyls would look like and stuff. And they did this adorable piece of little, 3-year-old Eddie and how he was visiting Uncle Wayne and he finds a frog and it's just him holding the frog, dripping wet. And I don't know, I read it in a nasally, little toddler voice being like, well, Uncle Wayne said I could keep it. And I just fell immediately in love with it. I know it's based off a fic on Archive called Mr. Ribbit. I'm not too sure if they wrote it or if they just made artwork based off it. But I immediately reached out to them and I was like, I need that on my gallery wall. And they were cool enough to hook me up. So definitely we'll be reposting it in our stories when this episode airs. But yep, little Eddie artwork by Keys. The next thing I got was my sister was cool enough to get me a gift certificate for my birthday that has just recently passed. And that is how I was able to secure the Bath and Body Works lit up candle stand, because that baby was going for 80 bones. And I was like, I can't justify that. Well, I was able to get it with a gift card, and it is beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous. And I know that they were having a sale that I believe ends today. So definitely check out on the app. They have different, coupon codes and stuff. So if you need to stock up on any soaps, Stranger Things soaps or candles, definitely check that out. And also Netflix, they released it on Amazon, Walmart, and Target. I picked up the embroidery set, which let's take bets on when I'm like, fuck this, and I throw it. But they did an embroidery set where you can do several scenes on the little like fabric loop and make it yourself from Stranger Things, past seasons, as well as a crochet kit where you can do the little characters. I can't crochet to save my life, so I'll probably get the kit and hire someone to do it for me because I just don't have the patience. But a lot of cool new little things. I know that there's been new sets of buttons that have come out available at some Walmarts and stuff. So definitely keep your eyes open. But you noticed a company called Cakeworthy?
Yeah, so Cakeworthy, I guess, is a clothing brand that has like officially licensed fan stuff, and they have a new line of Stranger Things clothes. So there is a Letterman jacket, or is it the
Ooh.
sweater? Oh, it's a Letterman sweater.
Cute.
There's a bunch of flannel shirts with different like Hawkins and Demogorgon designs. There's a jean jacket for the Hellfire Club. There's a Vecna shirt, a Hellfire Club beanie with little devil horns.
Woo!
There's a really cool Demogorgon t-shirt and a hoodie with like Vecna as like the Hellfire Club logo.
I love that.
There's also a bag. All of it is amazing, and I feel like I would love to have all of it, but we definitely are on a budget right now as we prepare for this con next month.
Amen.
So I did though splurge and pre-order the Squishmallows of the little ice cream Scoops Ahoy characters.
Stephen and Robin one, yes.
Yeah. So they're super cute. They are supposed to come out October 1st. And I ordered them from Walmart, and I needed to add something else to get free shipping.
Mm-hmm.
And Walmart actually had, I think it was like from another seller, but it was being sold on Walmart. And it was the Campaign Eddie Funko,
yes.
which I don't have. And it was on sale for $17.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it was like half off. And if I didn't add something else to my cart, I was going to have to pay like $7 for shipping. So basically, I only paid like $10 for it.
You did great, girl. You did great.
So that is supposed to come this week. And then the Squishmallows will come after they're released. But the other thing I've been like going back and forth about buying is the Polly Pocket set.
I know.
Because I do really want that. It's $50. I feel like I need to wait until it goes on sale.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty much available at a lot of places. I saw it on Walmart. I saw it on Amazon. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And I love the little figurines
So
that come
cute.
with it. I know. So I want that eventually, but we'll see. Yeah, but lots of fun merch stuff going on.
Amen.
All right. Is that it?
I think that's it. Tons of fun talking about this episode today with you.
Yeah, we were happy to be back. And next week, we will continue with our deep dive of season 2 with the next episode. All right. Until next time, over and out.
Over and out.
Eddie, I'm not sure I love the idea of you driving.
Well, I'm starting to suffer. Harrington's got her. Don't you, big boy?
And we're back. So here we are for our secret study segment at the end of our show where we talk about fan fiction. If you are not into fan fiction, please feel free to turn us off. But if you want to hear how it's been going with our reading lately with our boys, Steve Harrington and Eddie Munson, and all of the fun stuff that they get up to together in these fics, then you're in the right place.
Amen. Amen.
What have you been reading, Stacey?
So I have been reading, let me find the author's name. They wrote A Certain Kind of Type, which is just one of my favorites. And they're such an incredible artist. And Another Something.
And Another Thing?
And Another Thing. Yes. Damn.
And Another Thing. Okay.
Yeah. So I read a few one-shots of theirs. And then I was like, I want to read something long of theirs again because I loved A Certain Type so much. And the fact that they made a whole universe about, older steady. So I ended up looking up Cutting Close. And instead, while A Certain Type is through Eddie's point of view, this is through Steve's point of view, but it's taking place in a different universe, and kind of how Steve, is keeping his, bisexuality kind of under wraps, that he kind of had a history with Tommy, and everyone's moving on. It's after the events of Starcourt, and Eddie and Robin start hanging out because Robin's tutoring Eddie, and it's supposed to be taking place like September, October, November of 85. And kind of like Steve uses Eddie as kind of like a hookup to get buy weed from. But then he starts like noticing that he's thinking about Eddie a whole lot more. And it's very, very cute. It's a slow burn. There's a great moment in chapter 1 where a girl is like, oh yeah, if you watch a guy dance, that's how he fucks. So right away, Steve is like, why was I watching all the guys dance? Maybe it's just I had too much beer. And then he watches at one point Eddie dancing on family video, like teasing Robin, and he can't take his eyes off him. So I am living for this right now. I'm like, ooh. So I think I'm on chapter 5, and there's 10 chapters. So having a ball reading it right now.
That sounds like so much fun.
It is good. What about you?
I did love A Certain Type too. I remember I listened to that, and it was so good. I have been continuing to pretty much binge every Onion Chiver fic that exists.
Hell yeah.
So I did talk about joining their Patreon, and they have their ongoing story for Patreon members right now, which is Scorpio Skies.
Ooh.
And I have finished everything that's out. We got a new chapter this week, which was chapter 7, and I devoured that.
Love that.
I also read, let's see, a few more. I think Pretty Stupid was a Patreon story as well, a one-shot. There was also Tower, You're My Tales. That's a one-shot that is available, and it's really cute. It starts like on Halloween, and then it gets really angsty, of course. Definitely recommend that one.
Ooh.
Another really good one was Brave Face, which was, again, lots of angst, which is something that I love about Onion Chiver. But this one, Steve and Eddie meet when they're kids.
Ooh.
And they're basically best friends, but secretly. And I love how it at the end, well, actually, it cuts back and forth between time frames, because we've got like when they were kids and meeting each other and becoming friends, and then after season 4.
Oh,
and
okay.
kind of what's happening as they get out of the hospital and things like that. So it's good. I read Money is the Anthem, God You're So Handsome, another Onion Chiver one-shot. This one, basically Steve's parents are...
I've read this one.
Sort of mafia.
Yep, I've read this one.
And they are trying to force him to break up with Eddie and date someone else because they say it's not good for their image, and his dad's running for re-election. I just finished it last night. It was so good. There's definitely a twist ending that I just talked about with Stacey and cut out so I don't spoil it for you guys. And then I did read one story that was not Onion Chiver. So This Apple Pie Life has a recent one-shot called Never Not Mine, and it was really good. It was kind of a second chance. Steve and Eddie meet again after being broken up for a few years, and it's what happened. So definitely hot also,
Ooh.
but and all of the Onion Chiver ones are definitely pretty spicy in the best way.
Love that.
A podfic that it was a podfic that I was re-listening to,
Mhm.
and I think I re-listened to it last year and listened to it for the first time 2 years ago. So I feel like it's one of those ones that I'm going to want to listen to every year. But it's called When the Sun is High, I'll Meet You in the Woods.
Ooh.
And it also is a childhood friends story. So it's 4 seasons,
Mhm.
starts in the summer, then you've got autumn, winter, spring. So the summer chapter is when Steve and Eddie are kids and they meet each other and they play in the woods together all summer. And then in the autumn chapter, it's like a year or 2 later, and Eddie comes to move to Hawkins.
Mhm.
So they're in middle school. The winter chapter, they're in high school. And then the spring is basically the spring of season 4.
Oh, wow.
So it kind of goes over a lot of time period,
Yeah.
but just a little like peek into like their lives in each of those things. And they don't always stay friends, but it's
Yeah.
these moments that they have together. And it's so beautiful. And the author also records podfics, and she's the one reading it.
Mhm.
And she's British. I love her voice. And it's just really gorgeous. She includes really cool music in the podfic, and it's one of my favorite steady stories. So I had to re-listen to that the past couple of weeks too, and it's been really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's it. I'm gonna be like constantly wanting new chapters of Scorpio Skies because I love it so much. And also, I guess we only have a couple more weeks, hopefully, to maybe get a new chapter of
Prism.
Prism in October, fingers crossed.
Mhm.
So we'll see. And I've had a great time reading all of these Onion Chiver fics. They have so many one-shots that I have not read. I had not read many of them.
Yeah.
So it's fun to go back. And eventually, I think I might start, I think it's Behind, which is the Little Bits perspective of Your Divine.
Yes.
Haven't started it yet. I might read Touched. I don't know. Touched is their Omegaverse story.
It's good. It is
Yeah,
good.
I have
Definitely.
heard that it's really good. And I've said before that if I was going to read
You might as well read this one.
Omegaverse,
Yeah.
I'm gonna read Onion Chiver's Omegaverse
Yeah.
story.
It's pretty
So,
hot. Not gonna lie. It's pretty hot.
yeah, but maybe like once I've run out of everything else to
Yeah.
read from them,
There you go. Same for
I'll
dessert.
save that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my reading update.
Perfect. Look,
Yeah,
can't
it's
wait
been
to see
fun.
what else we're gonna be reading next, man.
Exactly. So, and all the time I get requests for us to write down all of the fics that we've talked about in our secret segment. And I am so sorry that we have not been able to make that happen. If anyone's
What?
listening and wants to volunteer to help us do that, we would love your help with it.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to, put together a document for us of all of the fics that we've talked about at the end of our episodes, that would be amazing. But I'll do it eventually. But
It's on the list, you know?
it's on the to-do list,
Yeah.
the never-ending to-do list.
For real.
But we love you guys, and we want to allow you to also read all of these fun fics in an easy way and not have to get paper and pencil out every time. But apparently that's what Juan does. So shout
Yes.
out
Shout out
Juan,
to Juan.
who we just recorded a bonus episode with, and that's what he said he does.
I love
Which
it.
I'm like, smart, so smart.
So smart.
We should start saying at the beginning, get out your pencil and paper because we're not going to be repeating this.
Nope. Yep. You know us, guys.
You got to take your own notes.
Yep.
All right. So that I think is really it for today. This was such a fun episode.
much
It was
fun.
fun to be back, and we'll talk to you again next week. Over and out.
Over and out.